Do you want to put a number to that in terms of the scale of how much the foundation does in India?
Yeah, we do. If you take direct and indirect, it'd be close to $1 billion a year. We help buy vaccines through Gavi. We fund a lot of different things. Our foundation is about $9 billion a year, and our health is our biggest, agriculture is our second biggest, education, super important, it's not super high percentage because we're so specialized on the health stuff and we've had so much progress on that. We want to make sure we do that super well.
I'm not going to ask you anything generic or anything I've heard you answer already. I'm going to be a little selfish and ask you questions that I try to answer for myself a lot of the time. Maybe there's no better person to learn from. When it comes to society at large, a lot of really wealthy people today are virtue signaling in the manner that being wealthy is a bad thing. It's starting to seem like the class and race divides of yesterday has become the new wealth divide has become that thing in society today, which is very socialist in the very thinking of it, inherently socialist when people think of it that way. And when I go on my own path of philanthropy, I often ask myself, like even at the pledge, I find myself asking this question, does philanthropy in that sense truly make sense? And me as a 37-year-old who's starting on this path, how do I think about this?
Well, there are some things that only philanthropy can do because they require taking risks. The basic needs of the people, the safety net, that's not really the role of philanthropy because you need to count on that year in and year out. And the government, through the political process needs to decide that. And of course, the market-based system is where most of this wealth comes from. And anything the market can do, like how many restaurants like this should we have, the market does that so well. But we know there are diseases and challenges that either the government's not innovative enough or the market opportunity is not enough, that the two big actors, private sector, which is like, 70% of the economy and, the government, which is like 28%, this third sector, which is only a few percent, can step in to do. When we had democratic capitalism, there was always this concern that the poorest would kind of overtax the rich and that the incentive system would be broken down. In fact, that really hasn't happened. You have in Northern Europe very high tax rates, but even there the incentive system works. So I think it's important to separate out, is my country's tax system as progressive as it should be? So when you look at billionaires, do they kind of have more than they should? And then if you look at whatever the billionaires have left over after they paid their taxes, are they engaging in thoughtful philanthropy? Are they kind of spoiling their children who are kind of arrogant and view themselves in a class of their own and being kind of extravagant in what they do? And that's very hard, to draw the line. What is that responsibility? Even with the Giving Pledge, this idea of give back half, some people say, well, half, if you have, $4 billion, that means for your own consumption and your family, you're keeping $2 billion. Well, it's not a upper bound. We'll have, people who will give away 99%. But it's great to debate these things because, we're not trying to take over government functions. We couldn't possibly afford to do that. But a lot of the best government programs, if you look into them, some philanthropists funded the pilot, brought together talented people. And often you're using the same skills that caused you to be able to be successful, and now you're using it on behalf of equality. How do you design a school or take AI technology into a farmer's advisory system? And that experience, that sense of urgency can be very helpful in philanthropic innovation.